So as you saw in the short video clip, you can clean the wheels on the locomotive without removing them. You simply push the locomotive into the brass brushes. Electricity is driven through the wheels, motor turns, the wheels turn, and they scrape along the brass brushes and get cleaned. It's not perfect, but it's real quick. So in this photo you can see a close-up of the brass brushes before I put everything together. I bought 3 in a package for, I think it was $1 at the local discount store. Most towns and cities have a bunch of these stores. You can find them, I'm sure. The brass bristles themselves are not in a tight mesh on the handle, as you can see, and they can be squeezed together fairly tightly, and I think that's a good thing, as you'll see later. The other item you need is some just ordinary copper wire. The copper wire you see in the photo is simply house wiring. I think that's just the ground lead that I took out of a strip of wire that I had, some old house wire that was around the house, and I used that. So that's really all you need electrically to make this work. Okay, so as you can see in this photo, it's pretty obvious how it goes together. The 2 handles are bolted down to a piece of scrap wood. A small length of 2x4 would be fine. It doesn't matter, whatever you have laying around. The exact distance of each brush handle and the centers of the brass bristles. That distance, of course, is the exact distance for the wheel sets on the locomotive. Mine is HO scale. So that was carefully planned out. You just have to be patient and measure it, or use an NMRA gauge perhaps. So once the handles were anchored, then I took the heavy gauge copper wire, wrapped it around as you see in the photo, and squeezed it as tight as I could, and I used locking pliers to keep the heavy gauge copper in place. You really kind of do need some kind of clamp system, or locking pliers are good for that. And then I just soldered it in place. I used lots of flux, and of course I cleaned everything as much as I could before I started. The heavy copper wire that squeezes the bristles is tight enough that the bristles form a narrow line, and it's fairly narrow enough that it will clean the steel wheels of the locomotive in and around the flanges, and that's simply how it works. I never did trim, although I could have. I could have maybe took some scissors or something and trimmed the tops of the bristles to make it more even. I didn't bother to do that. You can if you like. So now here is the locomotive, a photo of the locomotive being and the wheels in the trucks being pressed carefully into the brass brushes. I have my alligator clips. You can see one in the photo. It's not the best hookup. The alligator clips are kind of big, and they're at risk of shorting out with one another. But anyway, that's all you do. You just press it into the brushes, and the motor starts to spin, and the wheels turn, and it gives them a real quick brush. It's not perfect. It's not meant to be. It's just a real quick and dirty clean if you just want to give it a light clean, and that's it. That's all you have to do. Okay, here's the movie again showing the locomotive being cleaned, and for those of you who have cleaned the wheels on a locomotive, you realize that to do it right, you really have to take it apart and take the trucks apart and take the wheels off. So that saves the hassle of having to do that. Hope you enjoyed the video. Try the rear wheels now.